Hi, my name is Lily and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be tier ranking the most popular book romance tropes. So I first saw this on Chandler Ainsley's channel and I thought I would give it a go. It was originally created by Sara Carrolli. I think that's how you say the name. I've never watched her videos, but that is the creator of this tier ranking list that I will be using. So I have become a bit of a romance reader in the last 1 or 2 years, and I've read a lot of different romances, so I'm really interested to see how I rank different tropes. Obviously these are all going to be my opinions, but let's see how it goes. So let's just go through the different rankings first. So of course we have haven't read down the bottom. Get rid of it, obviously. Ones I hate. Not a vibe / fan is dislike but not strong. Doesn't hit unless done right. Self-explanatory. Not my fave, but also not my least favourite. I usually enjoy it and I will read any book with this trope. So I am predicting there's going to be a couple in haven't read, quite a lot in doesn't hit unless done right, and very few in I will read any book with this trope. So for me, there's never one trope in a book. There's always multiple tropes coming together, so a lot of them is doesn't hit unless done right. I think it's going to be difficult for any to end up in I will read any book with this trope, because even if it's got my favourite trope in it, if it's got my least favourite trope in it, I'm not going to be reading it. Okay, so first up we have teacher / student. This one is going to go in doesn't hit unless done right, and I feel like I need to explain myself. I'm absolutely not okay with it being a high school student and a teacher. I feel like that needs to go straight out there. It doesn't matter if they're 18. I know there's books out there that do this, but that is a crime. But university lecturer and student sometimes works. I think for me it works better when it's set in the UK, because in the UK the university lecturers have a lot less power as an individual over a student than they do in America. So from my understanding, in the American college system, the professor themselves grades all of the work, knows who's handed in what, there's homework and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of grading going on, whereas in the UK university system it's usually anonymous, and it's not always marked by the professor teaching that particular part of the course. You often have multiple professors teaching one course, so there's a lot less of a power dynamic. But yeah, it's one that I find really tricky to get on board with at times. Okay, number 2, fake dating. So this is going to be one of the rare ones that does go straight into I will read any book with this trope. Fake dating is probably my favourite trope, and I don't know, I can't remember which book it was that sold me on this. It might have been To All the Boys I've Loved Before, being the first book I ever read with fake dating in it. And I was sold, to be quite honest with you. I really like it, and I often find fake dating can make other tropes that I don't like more palatable to me, so I'm a lot more likely to pick up a book if it has fake dating in it, even if it has other tropes in it that I don't like. But of course, if it has my favourite tropes, including fake dating, then I'm going to be really excited for it. Okay, the next one is sport romance. This one is going to go in I usually enjoy it. Sports romance is probably my favourite of the romance character archetypes, I guess, because you have things like billionaire romance, that kind of stuff, but sports romance I do really enjoy, and I don't know why. I don't like sports in real life. I don't like watching them. Have no interest in them, but sports romances just hit different, I guess. I think it's because a lot of the time they have golden retriever energy and they're quite goofy. My favourite is hockey romances, but I do like NFL romances too, or college football romances, so there is that. But the reason it's not going into I will read any book with this trope, because if there's a particular trope that I really hate in it, sports romance isn't gonna override that for me, unfortunately. Forced proximity is going to go also into I usually enjoy it. So this one is another one of my favourites. I really like it as a plot device, but for me, I won't read any book with it in it because it's usually quite a small part of the book, or it's part of the setup but it's not a main component of the book. My particular favourites for forced proximity are the ones where it's long-term forced proximity, so sharing a living space, a workspace, something like that. I really enjoy, over that being the catalyst for their first kiss, if you follow what I'm saying. Okay, bad boy, good girl for me is going to go into not a vibe, not a fan. I'm not a bad boys person. I just am not. I like soft boys. I like golden retriever boys. I've just never been a bad boys kind of person. I think it's an autism thing where I have this very strong sense of justice, which is it's an autism trait. And so for me, when a character is bad, I don't like it. And I only consider them to be bad boys if they genuinely do make like bad decisions, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately, I don't think, because if it's one of those where like, oh, he's a biker boy, but really when you get to his POV, he's really sweet and he's really soft on the inside, to me that's not bad boy romance. That's just like grumpy. Okay, the next one is going to be controversial. Mafia romance for me goes into get rid of it. It goes back to the bad boy thing, the strong sense of justice thing. I don't have an issue with other people reading them, but I can't stand mafia romances. I've tried a couple, I've DNF'd both of them. I just can't get behind like falling in love with the bad guy. I just don't like it. It's not my thing. And for me, it's not just not a vibe, not a fan. For me, like, I just can't. Actually, no, I will change it to not a vibe, not a fan, because I don't want to get rid of mafia romance. I do think I'm just not a fan of it. But yeah, it's just, I don't like that dynamic. Okay, now we've got another one of my favourites, Grumpy Sunshine, which is going to go into, I can't decide if it's I usually enjoy it or I will read any book with this trope. I think it's I will read any book with this trope. It is one of my favourite tropes, if not my favourite trope. So if I hear that a book is Grumpy Sunshine, I will usually give it a go. I feel like Grumpy Sunshine often overrules a lot of other things, but also I find Grumpy Sunshine generally doesn't come hand in hand with enemies to lovers, because there's usually no sunshine element to enemies to lovers, and I'm not a fan of enemies to lovers. So usually Grumpy Sunshine dynamics are kind of a golden retriever-y character and a black cat character, and I really enjoy that kind of dynamic, so I will definitely be giving books a go when they have that in it. Okay, bodyguard romance, that one is not my fave, also not my least fave. I've read bodyguard romances, they're fine, they don't do anything for me as an extra element. You know, I don't look at a book and be like, oh, bodyguard romance, I need to read that. It's fine, I'm not opposed to them, I don't seek them out, they're very middle of the road for me. Okay, now we have right person, wrong time, and I'm going to put that one in haven't read, because I'm not sure I totally understand that as a romance trope. I'm not sure I've actually read a book with that in it, so I'm going to leave that. I don't think I would enjoy it, that's where that one's going. Okay, Only One Bed goes to I usually enjoy it, because similar to Forced Proximity, it's usually a plot device, not something that happens throughout the book, so for me it's not something that I think will make me want to pick up the book in isolation, but it is a trope that when it happens I do really enjoy it, and I love authors that are now taking different spins on it where, you know, the character volunteers to sleep on the floor. I really enjoy that dynamic that people are adding into it, and I think it is a really, really good trope. It's a bit cheesy, but I love it. Love at first sight goes into doesn't hit unless done right for me. I think this only works in the kind of like Five Chilies romances where it's more about the spice than the plot. But I do think you have to be able to write it in a certain way. I have read authors that have done this and they have done it okay, and ones that have done it terribly. So yeah, I will read books that I know have love at first sight in them, but it's not something that grabs me, it's not something that will sell me on a book, and it's something I will be very cautious of in case they haven't done it quite right. Okay, love triangles, get rid of it, hate them, no. Just no. I feel like a lot of love triangles ends up with one character either having to become a villain, so they're not the one that's chosen, they're mistreated, they're left out, and yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't like them, it stresses me out, and I don't like having to try and choose which one I think they should end up with, because I've been in a situation where I've had two people asking me out at the same time, and it was horrible having to pick which one to go out with, and I made the right decision because I'm still with the one I picked 4.5 years later, but I don't want to read about it. Okay, single parent. I think that one has to go in doesn't hit unless done right, because single parent requires there to be a child character, and that child character needs to be developed and age appropriate. And I think a lot of romance authors will not correctly age the child that they have written, where they'll have a 3-year-old that is incredibly precocious and far too advanced, or they'll have a 12-year-old who talks like they're 5. And I think that really irritates me with the single parent trope. It depends which parent it is, because I find sometimes when it is the man that's the single parent in romances with men in them, they can be portrayed as these saints, and often when there's a female character who's a single parent, it becomes kind of like a burden. And so I think it has to be written right for me to enjoy it, but I wouldn't say no if I knew it was a single parent romance. Friends to enemies to lovers, not a vibe, not a fan. I'm not a fan of enemies to lovers as a whole. Extra not a fan of friends to enemies to lovers, because if you became an enemy with them, especially after they were a friend, there is a reason. And no, I'm not here for it. Okay, age gap goes into doesn't hit unless done right for me. I am not one of these people that thinks that an age gap over X many years difference is inherently abuse or wrong. I think the world is more complex than that. I think there are people that fall in love with people vastly different ages to them, and there isn't always a power imbalance as people describe. But I don't think authors always recognise that. I think a lot of authors that write age gap romances lean into that trope of the older character, usually the man, having some kind of power over the younger character, and it becoming almost like a pro in the relationship, and then almost acting more like a father than a boyfriend. So I have really enjoyed some age gap romances, and it is one that it will pique my interest in a book, because if it's done well, I do really enjoy it. But yeah, it has to be done well, and I think a lot of authors do not do it properly. Accidental pregnancy, get rid of it. I am not here for that. Don't enjoy it. I have read, it was an L. Kennedy book where the whole premise was around an accidental pregnancy, and I really didn't enjoy it. I just didn't enjoy the vibes. I think it takes away too much from building a romantic relationship, and I feel like sometimes the books come across more like baby trapping than anything else. And yeah, I'm all for a planned pregnancy happening in a book, or I'm all for epilogues being about them having babies. That's totally fine with me, but the accidental pregnancy being part of the hook of a book, bully romance, get rid of it. Absolutely not. I can't stand them. Like I said, I don't want to root for the bad guy. I think if someone is a bully, there is a reason, and I struggled to get behind it. Although I'm saying this, and I did fully ship the bully romance that happened in Sex Education, the TV show. So maybe I can be persuaded, but in general, I'm not a fan, and usually the bullying is for a reason, especially if it is a male-female romance and the person is being bullied for an unrelated reason. Like, I feel like the Sex Education bully romance works because it's like the repressed gay situation going on, whereas a lot of the time these bully romances are more just they're an arsehole. And I don't want to root for our main character to date an arsehole. I'm not doing it. Brother's Best Friend goes into not my fave, also not my least fave. I've read one or two, they can be good, they can be There's nothing particularly enticing to me about that one. I will read it. I'm not particularly excited by it, but yeah, that's it really. I don't have any strong feelings around that one. Okay, Friends with Benefits to Lovers. I don't know if I've ever read one of those. I haven't read it, but I do know it would be not my fave, but also not my least fave. Like, I'd probably read it, but oh no, I definitely have read one of these somewhat recently. Yeah, I've read a Lucy Lennox that does this. Yeah, it was fine. It's not a particularly interesting trope to me. Again, like all of this tier, but it's not one that would put me off. I think it's one that does have to be done right. The relationship has to develop in the right way, but it's fine. It's just not my least favourite. Okay, workplace romance. I think that goes in doesn't hit unless done right, because I have read some really enjoyable workplace romances, and then I've read some that felt really icky and manipulative. I think especially if it's a like boss employee romance is when it gets really icky. But yeah, I think it definitely has to be done right. It has to be work appropriate. It has to be in the right way for me. Like, again, it's not one that would particularly sell me on a book, but if it is done right, I think it works really well, because lots of people fall in love with people they meet at work. Enemies to lovers, not a vibe, not a fan. Again, I just stick with that feeling in my head of, if you were enemies at some point, there was a reason for that. I know it's not real. I know people fall in love with people they didn't like at one point, but for me, I really struggle with the black and white thinking of that and to get around to it. So yeah, not for me. If I know the main trope of a book is enemies to lovers, I generally will avoid. Strangers to lovers, I don't know what that means, because a lot of them are strangers before, so I'm going to put that in haven't read, because I just don't understand that one. Okay, childhood friends to lovers doesn't hit unless done right, because I think the relationship needs to develop with them as adults. I don't like it when there's pressure externally from like parents, etc., to be together as children. I definitely read one or two of these, and yeah, I think it's one of those where I find that's a difficulty from the friends to lovers trope of making sure there is a natural progression to the lovers part, and also that previous relationships, if they exist, were treated well. Okay, slow burn. Not my fave, not my least fave. I don't seek out slow burns, I don't avoid slow burns, I have to just be in the mood for it. One of Us is Famous. I usually enjoy that one. I do quite like celebrity romance. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's that fantasy element of it that I like. But yeah, I do generally like celebrity romances. And I do actually think if I see a book as a celebrity romance, I'd be more likely to pick it up. Like, I had a phase at one point of reading rock star romances that I really enjoyed. And I think sometimes the sport romances that I read also fall into this category where it's an NFL player, and I do really like that aspect of it as well. I Hate Everyone in the World But You doesn't hit unless done right, because I think as long as they're not an arsehole about it, then I'm on board with it. But if they're really horrible to everyone because of it, then I'm not on board with it. Right Person, Not Enough Time. Haven't read it, but I would not like it. I can tell you that now. No. I want my romances to be happy. Friends to lovers. I will read any book with this trope. This is my favourite of the dynamics other than Grumpy and Sunshine. I think there's not as many Friends to Lovers books out there, so if I hear a book as Friends to Lovers, I will be a lot more inclined to pick it up. So yeah, I really love Friends to Lovers. I think because I identify as demisexual, which means that I have to have an emotional connection with someone before I feel any kind of physical attraction to them. I think that makes me more inclined to enjoy Friends to Lovers, because I like seeing that relationship form before they have a physical relationship. Good Boy, Bad Girl goes into not a vibe, not a fan for the same reason as Good Girl, Bad Boy, because I just don't want to root for the bad people. I just don't like it. Insta Love doesn't hit unless done right. For me, it's the same as Love at First Sight. I don't understand the difference between Love at First Sight and Insta Love. I think it can work. I think especially for 5 chilly romances, it can work really well. But it has to be done right, and you have to be able to see why they would fall in love so fast. Billionaire romances, I usually enjoy them. This is one of my other favourite of the character archetypes, like, what was I thinking? Sports romance. I like a billionaire romance. It does definitely sell me on a book if I know it's a billionaire romance. It is one of my favourite kind of subgenres, and I think it does have to be done right, but I do usually enjoy them, and I can forgive a lot when it comes to a billionaire romance, because I just enjoy that escapism fantasy of someone really rich sweeping you off your feet. Royalty romance, not a vibe, not a fan. I've read a couple, or I've tried to read a couple, and actually no, I'm going to put it in doesn't hit unless done right, because I have read one that I really love, but I think it's very tricky. Usually I don't like them, and I think it's because I'm not a fan of the monarchy, and I'm not a anti-royalist, or whatever they call themselves, but I just am not a fan of the icky kind of connotations of royalty, which I struggle to deal with when reading a romance with royalty in it. Secret relationship. Not my fave, not my least fave. Again, won't sell me on it. Not a huge fan of it, but it can be good. But I've not read a ton of them, to be honest. We've already had forced proximity, so we're going to ignore that. Second chance romance. Not a vibe, not a fan. It's similar to the bad guy thing for me. If you've broken up once, I feel like you're probably going to break up again, and I really struggle. I think a lot of them don't put enough time and effort into explaining why they want to get back together and why they should get back together. So yeah, it's not one for me. We've had single parent, we've had workplace romance, we've had fake dating, we've had that one. That's repeat right next to each other. Marriage of convenience, here we go. I think that one's an I usually enjoy it. I think, actually no, I'm going to put it in I will read any book with this trope. I do really like Marriage of Convenience. I think it's really fun. It's like fake dating for me. It's essentially just an extension of fake dating, I think. So I really like that one, and one of my favourite Chloe Lease books is Marriage of Convenience, and I think they're quite interesting because a lot of the time the Marriage of Convenience ones, they're not even like pretending to date those around them, but they have to pretend in front of like officials for different reasons. So yeah, I like them. Terms and Conditions is a great one. So yeah, I really enjoy that one. So I think, have we done all of these? I think the only ones left are duplicates, so that is all of the tropes in this tier ranking that has been created, and I hope you found it interesting hearing my thoughts on different tropes. I think I was pretty right. Most of the tropes for me are don't hit unless done right, and not many in the I will read any trope with this book, any book with this trope. I was surprised though that I have more in not a vibe, not a fan than in I usually enjoy it or not my fave, but also not my least fave. So but I think that's very clear that I know what tropes I like and dislike. I've read a lot of romance now, so I am really familiar with my preferences. So yeah, that is it. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me on any of these. I'm sure I've riled a lot of people up by not liking any of the bad boy bully romances and all that kind of stuff. The one that I was expecting to be in here that feels like it's disappeared is monster romances, but I haven't read any of those, so can't comment on that one. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. All of my social media links are in the description below, and if you would like to leave me a comment to let me know you are here, leave me your favourite colour of the heart emoji in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Bye!